Welcome to the Love Dog Podcast. I'm your co-host, Raina Butcher, here with our host, Dr. Sarah Hensley.
Hello.
Hello. And we also have special guests today, Josee Tremblay. Hi, Josee.
Hi.
So Josee is the author of the book Us and Yet, correct?
Us and Yet.
Yes. And
we have it in the background.
Yeah. So, and we'll put a link and everything to your book, of course, in our description. But today, episode 49, we want to talk, of course, about your book. And we want to talk about the balance between work and relationships, which I know a lot of your book covers. So first and foremost, just tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us a little bit about your book.
Okay, well, I'm a mechanical engineer by trade. So I had a long career in mechanical engineering, and I went on to deal with international assignments in Asia, in North America. I lived in the US for a while. I'm based out of Canada right now. I do mechanical engineering work, but also all sorts of engineering. A couple of years ago, I came across this document that said we were leaving on the table $172 trillion worldwide by not harnessing the power of women at work. And I thought, okay, I met with my CEO, a first CEO in career, and he's 92 now. And he said to me, he says, every time I come home and my spouse, I talk to my spouse about something that I have trouble with, she says, Jim, what are you going to do about it? And I thought, okay, 2 years ago, see $172 trillion of money being left on the table. I thought I needed to do something. So I started hiring a writing coach, and I ended up writing the book. The book was really about the whole life architecture. I thought if we want to succeed as women in business, it's not possible for us to be alone. We need to figure out our support network, whether it's having awesome support at home and they can do all the things that you would not normally have the time to do if you're on a business trip or things like that. And it's also having the support mentally. So you come home and you need to have a way to vent, and you need to have a way to explore the stress that exists within like a pretty demanding career. So my thought was we need to look at the whole life architecture. And it starts also with having a nice relationship with a spouse, if you have the chance of having a spouse. And they're a key pillar in that arsenal, if you will, of life architecture to support your life. So I explore that. And then your podcast really explored many things that I thought would be very interesting to mix in the conversation. I'm really enthusiastic about hearing what Dr. Hensley is going to tell us about that attachment that you might have for a great career, but at the same time navigating that tug of war with the demand of home life.
Right. And family. And so I already know what Doc's going to say. I've been here long enough, I know, but chime in here, Doc, with, what you think, what you see mostly in your practice in terms of the attachment styles, whether that be female or male, because we know that attachment styles aren't gender specific, but that really struggle with that work and family balance.
Yes, it would be for sure the dismissive avoidant. They tend to be workaholics. If they're not workaholics, they're hobbyaholics, but I would say more commonly they are workaholics because work is a place where they can feel successful, where sort of they struggle in their romantic relationships feeling defective, feeling like they can't meet other people's needs and meet other people's expectations. But they usually tend to really thrive in a fast-paced or very complex work environment. And it helps them stay distracted from their feelings. It helps them stay suppressed from their emotions concerning their relationship. And they tend to be high-functioning in work and feel very highly competent at work, where the opposite is true inside of their relationships. So I'm interested to know a little bit more about how you feel like people's romantic relationships can really be impacted by being very successful at work, and give us a little bit of a gender breakdown too. What are the things that are unique to women, and how does this affect men as well?
Yeah. I like the fact that you say how it affects men too, because our spouse have experienced similar things. They go to work. If you are a dual career couple, you go to work and you come home, and they have their struggles as well. And when you're not super mentally fit to come home and support that partner, it affects both sides. And you wanted to explore, I have an extract from my book. I'm going to just read it. I have it right in front of me. I pulled it out because I thought it was very relevant to exactly what you're talking about. It says, the price of success for women at work can be high. The average female manager is less likely to be married and more likely to be childless than her male counterpart. Half of all women managers are childless, and they are twice as likely to have been divorced or separated as their male colleagues. The majority of male managers' wives were there to be supportive, while the majority of female managers were in a dual earner relationship if they were in one at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so
it makes
that
me sad.
I know, and my heart is so sad when I read this, and I'm gonna have a tear on my eye. But when you said suppressed feeling, it really resonated for me, Dr. Hensley, because I remember taking a 30-day challenge for what do you call it? Meditation in the morning. So it was like a 30-day meditation. And it was one that you were supposed to feel all you could feel. You could hear all you could hear. You could see all you could see. It was like really kind of elevating your sensory emotion. And because I've been in a high intensity work environment, I've worked coping mechanisms over the years where I even deal with stress, and I don't, I try to be supportive for the team so they don't see their boss being like all excited but at the same time, what it does to my own body is I think I'm suppressing a lot of the emotions that I should be feeling. And this 30-day meditation after 20, I went into work the afternoon and I literally had a panic attack at work. I was, oh my God, this is making me feel too much of my own emotion. And it almost hit me like a brick because, wow, how much emotion every day am I suppressing?
Right.
Because I'm in this high intensity role. And so it was a big revelation. But where I was going with this is like, it's so important that when you come home, you have almost like a relief and a way and a partner to be there to communicate with you. And it becomes more and more difficult when you're dual career and you didn't have that space during the day to be yourself and to explore your own emotion. It makes it more difficult to sustain a long-term partner relationship at home. And I'm on my second relationship. I think you need to find the right characteristics and it sounds like you two have phenomenal partners as well. I heard
We
that.
do. And we're sort of both on our second round too. I was never married before, but something that I just thought of while you were talking, Josee, is something that Doc talks about a lot, which is, self-regulation and co-regulation. And I think it's important to touch on just based on what you said, because self-regulation can be really, really hard. But if you're able to find somebody who you can co-regulate with, for those people who maybe suppress a lot or are in high stress, high intensity, high up roles with their career, it's really nice to have that person to come home to that can help you, like you said, soften and that really nice soft place to fall. And I know that it's not always possible. So, Doc, I want you to hit on, just the importance of self-regulation and co-regulation. And, obviously both are equally as important.
Absolutely. So we need both self-regulation and co-regulation to be successful in a romantic relationship. So we need to be able to bring ourselves into a sense of safety And I always believe that has to happen first before we can co-regulate, because two dysregulated people can't co-regulate. We're just going to get more dysregulated, right? If our partner's also dysregulated, we need at least one person to be the oak tree that can ground the pair. But we also need to have co-regulation where we can sort of sink in with our partner, and we can allow them to soothe us and allow them to support us and allow them to help, just relax our nervous system to some degree. Because when you're in a high stress work environment, your nervous system is probably not operating in a very regulated state. You're facing a lot of problems, a lot of challenges, and the words I like to use is just putting out a lot of fires. We do that, being a high-level CEO, you're putting out a lot of fires, and you need to be able to switch into energy where someone else can take the lead. And I'm really lucky that I have a husband who is now a stay-at-home dad. He's a retired military veteran. And he had a successful contracting business, but as my business grew, it just didn't make sense anymore to have someone that was a stranger kind of raising our kids and eating DoorDash all the time. That was what we were doing, and it wasn't working. And if we looked at, the money, it just made more sense for him to lay down his business. And it's really wonderful to see him take that role of dad really seriously and to be there for our kids. But he's also a support for me when I walk out of my office at the end of the day and I just want to kind of collapse on the floor, where he can be like, well, dinner's taken care of, the kids are taken care of, everything around here is taken care of, and you can just kind of breathe and let go. I also had it the opposite way in my first marriage. We were a dual income house. I was working very, very hard. In fact, I was teaching lots of adjunct classes on top of my full teaching load to make extra money. And then I had a husband that did virtually nothing to help me with the house or the kids. And so I do think that it really negatively affected my mental health and my relationship because I had zero work-life balance. And so but I also, on the flip side of that, want to acknowledge that for men, it can be hard to have a woman who is very successful in their career, in their lives, because it can tap into some of their insecurities about needing to be the provider and needing to be the one who's making more money and being more successful in their work life. So talk to us a little bit about that, specifically about how, if you want to be a very successful woman, how can you help support your partner in being supportive of you as the one who is, quote unquote, more successful in the relationship work-wise?
Wow. So I love where you're going with this. My chapter 2 of the book is about finding power in the archetypes. And
tell us more about the archetypes. I would like to learn more about that.
Yes. So I looked at all sorts of historical adage, historical knowledge, and in most cultures, they will be highlighting the two archetypes, being one feminine and one masculine archetype. And they'll put different stories around these archetypes. And our children are going to grow and listen to stories that are actually describing to us what these archetypes are. And because I'm a woman in STEM, I was one woman out of 12 at the table most of my career. So I'm in a highly male-dominated environment. It changed a little bit towards the end of my career as a mechanical engineer directly. Currently, I'm doing consultancy, so that's why I'm kind of describing it as a little bit in the past. It's a couple of years ago that I ended my mechanical engineering per se career. And this part of me was discovering that I needed to be with my partner, someone that I wasn't necessarily at home. And my second, maybe 10 years ago, we went on this Tony Robbins. I don't know if you know. He's quite popular.
Big Tony Robbins fan.
Oh, yeah.
So we went, my spouse and I went to this Date with Destiny. And in Date with Destiny, he brings his spouse and they share about this construct of feminine and masculine energy and how important it is for you to cultivate your feminine energy in your relationship. And I was like, cultivate my feminine energy in my relationship. So they were describing to me, like, I need to let my spouse take care of all the financial stuff, and I need to let my spouse take care of all these things, and I need to be soft, and I need to be, and at the time it didn't resonate that much. And then I realized it was a golden nugget. It was the golden nugget I did not have when I was in my 20s, and I did not succeed in my first marriage, I guess. So, but really, my second spouse and I are looking at the world very differently since we went to Date with Destiny. We're interacting with each other very differently. I'm the kind of person who managed large capital investments. I managed large portfolios all my life, multi-billion-dollar P&L. And I looked at this and I thought, I'm very good at finance. I'm very good at all these aspects that are very male dominated. I'm good at fixing your heating system in your house. I'm troubleshooting my heating system in my house. So I'm good at all these things where you find a lot of gentlemen normally. So how do I actually succeed in a relationship while being this full-fledged mechanical engineer at work? And it was a challenge. Sure. And it didn't rub me the right way when Tony Robbins was telling me, you need to actually let go of finance. And I was like, this doesn't work. But what he was telling us was that I needed to be in my feminine archetype when I'm at home. And my spouse needs to be in the masculine archetype when he's at home. And interacting between the two of us, we started changing a few things. I started not paying for the bill at the restaurant. Sounds like a small stuff, but it's significant. I could just continue to have, the rest of my beverage and sit back and relax and be in my soft side at home. And he can take care of the bill and worry about how much not tax, but tip you need to put on that bill. And that's very like financial oriented. So anything related to finance, I realized that while I was good at it, and I can come and look at, a position, investment position if I want to, that shouldn't be the bulk of my worries at home. The bulk of my worries at home should be that we're happy, we're comfortable, we're taken care of. So I really have been focusing more on that and less on finance and all the, what we would call. And vice versa, he's been ensuring that we have a good financial advisor, that we trust him, that all of these things that are going to make me feel secure. Because I realized that as a woman, I needed to have that safe place, but security comes in very many different forms. It's not just security, it's financial security, it's physical security. So it's safety about everything in your life. So the more safe, the more grounded you are as a woman, I think the more happy you are.
I think sometimes security can come in the form of letting go, right? Which sounds counterintuitive. But this is something we've talked about multiple times on the podcast, because I've often referenced how being a single mother for a very long time, right? Where I was just this one person household taking care of this little child and was responsible for all of the things, right? So then when I married my husband, it's been this new idea of having to let go of certain things. And just, even though I see it from this lens of, oh no, what's he doing? He's not doing it right. That I have to just let him do it, right? I have to let it go so that he feels powerful, right? And he feels this sense of, okay, there's certain things around the house that I'm responsible to take care of. And then I don't have to make all the decisions, because here's what I found myself doing was, I'm sick of making all the decisions. I don't want to make all the decisions. Come make the decisions for me. And then when he would try, I'd be like, well, that's not right. you know, and it can be really, really tricky. Yeah. It can be really, really tricky for a female who has kind of always taken the lead on all that decision making to let it go. But that's what I mean. There's security in the letting go.
Yeah. So one of the things that I see in my practice is we have what I call the passive husband controlling woman dynamic, where a woman they get married and the woman's like, I want this house and I want this car. And so the man's like, okay. And he's just the yes man. And he gets her the house and he gets her the car. And she's like, I want this many kids. I want this many babies. And he's like, okay, we'll have this many babies. And then she's like, I want to decorate the house in this way. And I want this furniture. And so he's like, okay, and he provides all these things. And he's just this yes man. But then over time, because he's provided it financially, he expects her to just manage it all because she's always done the managing of making those big decisions about life. And then what happens is she gets extremely resentful. Yes, she decided to have all of these big things that require a lot of management. But then when she looks to her husband and he's sitting back on the couch just going to work and coming home, and he's like, well, why are you upset? I helped you buy all of these things and I agreed to all of these kids. And she's like, but no, you're supposed to jump in and sort of be 50-50. Well, at the same time, you chose this life and you chose this fate. And that expectation that he had that you were also going to then manage it all, it is not ending up being fulfilled. And she's very, very resentful. And then she's very dominant and controlling in other aspects of their relationship as well. And then he is completely in this passive, non-masculine archetype, and she's in this very dominant masculine archetype. And although she got, quote, everything she wanted, managing it and making all of these decisions in life on how to run this ship is exhausting to her. And so that is exactly what I think happened in my first marriage for sure. And I see it constantly in clients. So how can couples go, for people who are getting ready to get married or are entering a long-term relationship where they are going to decide to move in together or kind of up the ante in the commitment, how would you suggest couples can kind of work this out in terms of managing responsibilities of the house and managing their work and allowing that leadership role from the man to come about while also feeling like he has the ability to give some of what his wife is wanting to her in these big aspects of life?
Yeah, I think the best way to describe it is to really look at the female archetype. What is it about? And then if you're identifying as a woman, to be looking at what these characteristics are. And I have a huge list in my book about what it means to be in the feminine archetype. And once you look at that, you think, which part of this can I actually authentically embody? You don't want to be looking at that list and thinking, oh, I would never do that and blah, blah, blah. Then you don't try it. Or if you try it, you say, it doesn't fit me, and that's okay. You don't have to fit that archetype 100%. But the more you can fit in your relationship, the more I think you're going to feel that spark. And we can talk about spark in the relationship. I do see this in the last decade between my spouse and I, we have been building that spark even more than we have before. And I'm seeing it every day. So I'm really trying to be focusing on my feminine archetype. And on his side, he's focusing on what are the male archetypes. And between us, at work, we can be whatever we are. But between us, when we're interacting with each other, we have our backs in that fashion. I tried to have his back as being a woman in the relationship, and he tries to have my back as being a man in the relationship. And it seems everyone is trying to go in the middle in this inclusion construct. And I think we're losing if we're all trying to go in the middle. We really need to continue
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
yes,
we need
I
to
really agree with that. I think, just from a faith perspective, I mean, God made us uniquely different and gave us unique capabilities and unique traits. And I think when we try to blend it too much, we really become very unhappy. I know for me, there are so many things like Raina said, I don't like to make decisions in my house. I have to make decisions all day long for the company. And I don't want to make a single dang decision. I don't want to choose where we eat. I don't care. Just pick it and do it and go, right? But I think sometimes men get so afraid of not making the right choice that they rely too much on their female partners to make decisions because they just want her to, again, be happy with the decision instead of taking the mental load off of her to have to make the decision in the first place. So share with us a little bit of those characteristics of the female and male archetypes.
Yeah, so the female would be, as I said, the caring, the person who's looking after the well-being of the people she loves. And it's about looking out for what are their needs, are they happy, the little cues that might be given that they're sad, to be exploring why they would be sad. So it's really in the emotional, anything that would be right brain would be more the exploration of that archetype. If you think about the yang, in some cultures, you'll think yin, yang. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
absolutely.
Anything that is yang would be female archetype. So it's darkness, the moon, like it's all of that feeling. We have our female cycles, we go with the moon. So like you can think about that. Anything that is associated with the change of moods and how you adapt to that, and the flow and softness, and all of these aspects are important. And then it goes beyond that. It's almost the benevolence in life, and how do we actually help the world, and how do we make the world a better place. And these are deep thinking that both genders can do, but we're really suited for that kind of work because we are suited to look around and feel. And as I said, if I did 20 days of meditation, I started feeling too much for the job that I was in. But it's really about that. It's about finding the happiness and making sure that all the people, mental health, are people in your life are taken care of at home. And the male archetype is about assuring that they come in and they do they create a safe environment. They create a good environment, healthy environment for everyone to thrive. And they will be making decisions. But if they make decisions, usually we need to feel like we're heard. Because if we don't feel we're heard, we don't feel secure.
Absolutely.
So the comment that you made earlier about someone not feeling comfortable about letting the spouse go and try to control the relationship, well, that person needs to learn how to let go and be in their soft side. But vice versa, the spouse, whoever that spouse was, needs to figure out how he can make sure that she's comfortable with her environment, that she has the right house to be secure, and all of these things, and that it meets her needs. So there's that protectiveness, the defender. There's all these archetypes that are attributable to more the male archetype. So I would say the top two are assuring safety of the family, assuring the well-being of the family from everything is set up and they have the right environment. Lots of the male archetype resonance. And then the female archetype resonance is more about all the feelings, the mental health, and all that. As I said, you need to be authentic about it. So for me, I'm probably on the spectrum, probably the furthest on the male archetype in my work that you can imagine it. And I still found a zillion things that I could authentically embody in this women archetype. No problem, because I'm a woman. I identify as a woman, so it's no problem. I could find, so as you don't need to be the most, I think, female-oriented archetype in your day-to-day work to be a female archetype at home, and vice versa. The male doesn't need to be, could be a male nurse taking care of a person every day and being really focused on the well-being at work. But then when they come at home, they need to find a way that they can come into their male archetype with their significant other if they want to have that polarity spark to continue and grow.
Yeah. And I really, that really makes me think about how in my practice, when I have more males are dismissive avoidant than females. I would say about 85% of dismissive avoidants are men, and they don't know how to pick up on cues from their partner and meet their partner's needs very well. They're very self-directed, self-focused. It can come across as selfish. And so when I'm working with these individuals and they're like, well, I just don't know how to meet my wife's needs, one of the things that I tell them is, you have data on her every single day. You can collect data on your wife by living with her and noticing what she likes, what she doesn't like, what stresses her out, what makes her feel comfortable. And they have these sort of proverbial blinders on, and I try to teach them how to take those blinders off and collect that data. So they're afraid to make decisions because they don't want to make the wrong decisions. And they're like, well, I don't know what to do. Yes, you do, because the data is right there living with you. All you have to do is turn your attention to them. And you're going to have to be intentional about turning your attention to your wife and collecting this data. It's things like noticing what kind of coffee she likes and how she takes her coffee in the morning. It's things like, what is her morning routine? What does her bedtime routine look like? I mean, when my husband was going Christmas shopping for me, one of the things that he did was he looked through my products and took notice a few months before Christmas of the things that I used regularly and that I would like. And he made those things stocking stuffers. And I thought, what a beautiful thing to do, because he had that intention of collecting the data, right, on me. And so for men out there who are maybe our male listeners or females who want to forward this podcast to their husbands, you have the data. She lives with you, right? And so it's about tuning in your attention and giving that attunement to your spouse and noticing the things that help them to thrive and make them feel safe and make them feel comfortable. And all you have to do is look around, and then you won't feel like you're left guessing. Right. And then a lot of men who are with dismissive avoidant women, they really struggle because their female partners have so much of the masculine archetype and so much of those male-oriented traits where they aren't in touch with their own emotions. And if you're suppressing your own emotions, you can't attune to others' emotions very well. That becomes very uncomfortable and very overwhelming. And so I think it's important for females with the dismissive avoidant attachment to try to look at those characteristics and see, again, like you said, which ones can you authentically embody, right? And I think that really would be important for women who have more avoidant attachment, even fearful avoidant women who maybe lean more to that avoidant side of their attachment, really trying to embody the things that they can embody authentically. And I love that you used that word because authenticity is so regulating to the human nervous system. And you really hit the nail on the head where if you can't feel like you can embody it authentically, it's not going to work. That's going to dysregulate you more. That's going to cause more tension inside of your relationship. And so I love that you said we don't have to have all of the characteristics, but if we can look at them and pick and choose which ones feel good and authentic to us, then that's going to make us more successful.
Yeah. And another thing that you hit on that hits home for me is reassurance, right? Reassurance from my partner is really what makes me feel safe, because in those moments where I want to be in control and I don't realize that I need to relinquish it, sometimes just having him, kind of grab me by the shoulders and say, you don't need to do this. Let me take the lead, right? And there's really something sexy and beautiful about that, because it automatically, just that small sentence allows me to say, okay. And then he feels powerful, and then I can embody my feminine energy.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think this can even happen in non-traditional households. I mean, I would consider my house a non-traditional household. My husband does have a very nice military retirement, and he absolutely insists that pays our bills. And so I allow that to happen. But most things that are fun or extra, I take care of, right? And then long-term investments and big purchases, I'm very, very blessed financially with my business that, I'm happy to have. But he still feels like he's the provider of our big bills and our major bills that run our household. But in the same sense, he's also the cook. I mean, he cooks. He he is very, very much in charge of our kids' activities and running them to activities and all of those things, which would traditionally be more of a female role, right? Preparing meals and running kids around. But he's really, really great at planning all of that and taking care of all of those things and making sure that our kids are where they are supposed to be and have what they need. And then when I come in at the end of the day, I can be just solely focused on their emotional well-being. I can spend time with my older daughter in her room, painting our fingernails, or we can, my younger daughter, we can play a game or do our hair together or whatever she wants to do. And I get to just focus on the emotional bonding with our kids, where he gets to focus on more of the planning and logistical aspects of our household. And maybe you're pointing out to me now that that's why things work so well between us, because I am coming in at the end of the day, and the planning pieces and the logistical pieces and the solution-oriented pieces are there. And I don't have to make the decisions in our family about who goes where and does each kid have what they need. We have 4 kids between us. And I can just focus on making sure that their hearts are okay. And as an attachment scientist, emotional attunement is everything, right? It is the hallmark of creating securely attached kids. And I get to focus my energy on doing that. And I'm good at that. And I can thrive at that. And that makes me feel really good. But at the same time, our kids feel great if dad picks them up. They love dad, and they love, spending time with their dad. And having him take that role, and our kids being able to grow up knowing that both of their parents were there for them. And of course, I don't know if you know my story, but my kids are being adopted by my husband because their dad passed away. And so he is really stepping into the role of their legal father. And for them to get that experience of having a very involved father is one that I think previous generations didn't get to experience. But he still gets to stay in that masculine energy of more planning and logistics and solutions and who has what coming up. And then I can take that off of my shoulders.
And I think that's where the shift in perspective has to start, is because like you talk about, he cooks, and like cooking can still be very masculine, right? Because I know for Valentine's Day, my husband cooked me a meal, and it was the best gift he could have given me.
Oh, that's really beautiful. Raina's an amazing cook.
It was the best gift he could have given me, because it allowed me, again, to not like cooking a meal is a big
It's hard. It's hard. It's
big
planning.
to do. There's lots of decisions that go with it. And so the shift in roles has to be considered, right? Where, like you just described, Donald's still living in his masculine, even though he's doing maybe roles like cooking or running the kids, but yet logistically he's living in that masculine role.
Yes.
And so I think that the perspective shift has to happen too, in order to really zone in and sink into what is really happening in households.
Absolutely. And my spouse and I, that's how he got to start dating me, because he cooked me an awesome meal. So I think
And it's awesome.
Men that cook, it is the sexiest thing in my opinion. And that is something that really made me fall hard for my husband, because he wooed me with some cooking at the beginning of our relationship. And I had cooked, my first husband never cooked anything, and then would complain about what I would cook, and only kind of wanted to eat fast food and eat junk food. And I wanted to cook healthy meals, and we struggled with that conflict. But I think not having to cook is amazing.
Yeah.
I don't want to cook.
Yeah.
But, a lot of women do enjoy it. I particularly do not enjoy it. And so I'm glad that I have somebody that does love that and really enjoys it. But he gets to remain in, like you said, in that masculine energy. And I think that you need a supportive partner like that. I could not run this business if I did not have a supportive partner who was keeping track of the kids' schedules and keeping track of the meals and cooking meals. There's just no way. There's no way that I could do this and be as successful as I have been without that. And I think a lot of men do ask him, like, are you okay that your wife makes all this money? And he's like, I love it, man. I'm proud of her. I love it. And I love getting to be at home and to spend more time with my children. His biggest life goal was to be a father. And he gets to be a very integrated father. He gets to be a very, very involved father. And there's beauty in that.
Yeah. And I know, Josee, now it seems like do you and your spouse both have, does he have a high up career as well?
Yeah,
Okay.
he's an engineer as well. So we're
Okay.
both engineers. Yeah.
So tell us just a little bit for our listeners how you manage sort of that dual income household then,
Yeah.
and where both people are pushing hard at work, and then you have
Because
to
that's
come
my
home.
situation too.
Yeah, that's Raina's situation, and I think about my brother. My brother is his wife is a very, very successful executive, very, very high up in a major company in Chicago that is an international company. They both do a lot of international travel, and they are both killing it in their careers. And so tell us a little bit about that type of environment and how you navigate that.
Okay. So my spouse and I have, I would say, a 50-50 split between all the home, it's a mental task that would come in. And we try to navigate it in a way that we do the things we like the best. And similar, you were talking about strategies around scheduling. I'm not good at scheduling. I can't schedule for the life of me. So my spouse is excellent at scheduling. He's in mega projects, and that's his job. So much easier for him. And as a result, at home, he takes a lot of the mental load as a result, because he is the one kind of looking at making sure that we're all in the right place at the right time. On my side, I think it's really about discovering what are the things that we could do to support each other along the way, and aim to be at 50% at home. There's a whole chapter in my book about that too. I talked about the fact that I'm trying to deal with the whole life architecture, because I do think we won't be successful if we don't have the right support network to be there for us. And that support network starts with your spouse if you have one. And so at home, try to figure out a way that you can split 50-50 and make it more like a really even split. Because if you don't get to that balance at home, it's going to be impossible for you to get to that balance at the office or at work. And as a result, you will drop out, you will ramp off. I've seen so many people ramp off between 25 and 45, which is the thick of things when it comes to kids and logistics and all that. And I think the only way you can do it is by trying to figure out a split that is 50-50 at home and 50-50 at work.
How would you say you guys emotionally connect? Now, are you guys intentional about like date nights and making a point? Yeah, because I know that's what my spouse and I have to do. We have to be extremely intentional about, because he is a police officer who works night shift. And so our schedules could not be more opposite. And, I'm working during the day, he's working at night, he's sleeping during the day, I'm working, and so it's like, we're just two ships at sea, right? A lot of the times. And so in order to emotionally connect, the only way to do that is to be extremely intentional.
Absolutely, 100%. And we do have date night, and our kids are teenagers now. They know that we are number one for each other.
Absolutely.
I'm number one for my spouse, and he's number one for me. The kids are obviously close seconds, but the kids are well aware that the relationship that we nurture is the most important part of our household. And without it, they wouldn't be able to do the work. Like it's heart-wrenching when you have couples splitting up with kids. It's difficult. So how do we circumvent that? Well, I think it's through deep understanding of each other, and it comes from understanding yourself. And that's why I was talking about the feminine archetype being something I discovered, and I'm so happy I discovered it in my second relationship, because now I'm able to figure out how we can nurture it. And similarly, I think my spouse needs to do the same. And you do need to come to an agreement where we split the work in a way that is 50-50, even if it's not equitable. Even if it's not equitable, because at work, most women will be earning, and I have it here in the 84 cents on the dollar.
Still an issue.
Yeah. So when you look at 84 cents on the dollar for a man, when you have to make the tough decision, who's going to ramp off their career, usually it's the 84 cents on the dollar that will ramp it off, not the dollar. But then we lose this human capital. People who have gone to school, did PhDs, and they'll ramp off because they can't figure out a way to manage it all. So really, my advice is figure out a way that you can do that with your spouse, even if it's not equitable. Like, you know. So,
Yeah, that's actually an intervention that I give a lot of my clients who really struggle with, feeling like it's fair at home in terms of, the household duties. I say, make a list of every household duty that you have, like be very comprehensive. And then what you're going to do is you're going to split it up as equally as you can and try to take the tasks that don't bother you or that you hate the least, right? And then, but the hard part of the intervention is you have to completely let go. Like if you're in charge of dishes and the dishes pile up, I tell the other person, do not go in there and do the dishes. It will become very obvious who's slacking off and who's not holding up their end of the deal. Put the dishes next to the sink. I know it will kill you. I know the type A in you will want to just sit down and be like, well, he didn't do it. I'm going to go ahead and do those dishes. No, don't do them. Sit, place the plates on until the plates start overflowing. And then he has to look straight at those dishes and take full accountability that those were his. And, I'm the one as the coach telling you not to touch them and you're just following my instructions. He's going to sit there and do it. And it actually works really, really well. So if you're the one in charge of, the kids making sure their teeth are brushed and they come home with cavities, we know who dropped the ball, right? And so it prevents the blame shifting and the finger pointing and the overall stress. But you have to get to that point of being able to let go of control. And I tell this especially for women. You know what? He might not do it how you like it. He might not make the bed the way you love it to be made. Don't criticize him. Don't go behind him and redo it. Let just the bed be made that way. Maybe on the weekends you tidy it up a little bit or you add some extra pillows or you do something that makes you feel a little bit better. But if especially I know for men that if you go and you criticize the way they do it, they're going to stop doing it because they feel like it's not worth it, right? And so part of relinquishing control and moving back into that female archetype is going to be accepting that somebody might not do something the way that you want it done, or they might not do it as timely as you want it done. And you need to be able to control yourself and allow them the accountability of seeing the dishes pile up, for example.
Yeah. And let go. Exactly. It's exactly what you need to do is not criticize, but find ways that you could say, hey, listen, I see the kids have cavities now, and it was on your list. Let's figure out a path forward. Obviously, what we had planned is not working. Right. So I think it's an and conversation.
Absolutely.
See something is falling, it's like, okay, and what can we do to help to do something differently?
Right. How can we shift this to make it work for everyone?
And that's a really non-critical way to communicate that, right? What does it look like? How can we work together to move forward, or how can we work together to make this a better experience for everybody involved instead of, this was your job and you failed, right?
No shaming. Shaming's not allowed.
Right. Which a lot of people just do not know how to communicate non-critically, which is something that I teach in my hybrid group. How do you approach these things with your partner and coming in with, I really want to have a conversation about this and how we can maybe be more efficient or more effective, how we can work together with, on this, and coming in with this sort of like collaborative mindset versus pointing out the ways in which someone has potentially failed and can really trigger, the wounding that other people carry.
Well, Josee, I just want to make sure, is there anything else, where can we find you? Where can people find your book? I mean, that's the most important thing. I think I want to read your book now.
I want to read your book for sure.
So tell our listeners where they can find you and where they can find your book.
Yeah, so they can go to www.usandyet.com.
Okay.
So you can find me there. And the book is on Amazon, so you can go on Amazon and order your copy. Within 1 or 2 days, you're going to have it at home. And awesome. I do have a table in it where highlighting all the female and male archetypes, what works well at home, but also what works well in a work environment, because that's something I learned as well, and could be a whole other podcast, is how you actually behave in a male-dominated environment and still succeed.
Right.
But really, this part, I'm really happy and super thrilled that we had this conversation this morning, because I think it's very important for anyone trying to
Absolutely.
pursue a career and have a happy, healthy relationship with their
Yeah,
spouse.
and I mean, it's the
Absolutely.
world we live in today, right? You
Right.
know,
We have a lot of dual income households. It is just the world we live in nowadays.
yeah, so I agree that it's very important, and it touches on, you know, both our male and female listeners, which, you know, we are very passionate about. So obviously, if you guys are watching right now, thank you. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
listening. Please go pick up Josee's book, Us and Yet.
Yet and Yet.
And Yet. Please, while you're there on Amazon, online, go check out Dr. Hensley at thelovedoc.com. Check out all of her services there, her hybrid group coaching program, all of her courses, Coach Elizabeth. We also have some resources on the website and on your Amazon link.
Yep.
We'll be sure to add your book too.
Yeah, we will add your book to our Amazon store.
Yeah,
That's
for
in my
sure.
link tree. So anybody that accesses my social media can go to my Amazon store, and books that I find fascinating, helpful in the relationship space and in personal growth and development, I put there. So
Yes.
we will add that there as well.
Yes. And of course, we want to mention our affiliate, Armora Colostrum. Thank you, Armora, so much. We love you. Obviously, we have it in our water
It's
right
in our
now.
water today, as it always is.
Yes. And it's kind of a one-stop shop vitamin for all of your needs. I mean, you know a lot about how it affects the gut.
So yeah, and we just did a previous episode on vagus nerve functioning and the gut, and how intimately connected our immune system, our gut, and our brain all are. And it is a colostrum supplement that supports your immune system, your gut health, your brain health, and it does wonders also for hair, skin, and nails. So it's a really great beauty product as well. So you can go to tryarmra.com and use code LoveDoc. Sometimes we have codes with numbers, sometimes we don't.
This one has no number. It's just LoveDoc.
Just LoveDoc, and you will get 15% off of your first purchase. So
Yes.
thank you for being an affiliate, Armra. We
Armra.
really love your products.
And of course, if you're a loyal listener of this podcast, you get 27% all of Dr. Hensley's services. So by using LoveDoc27, obviously we really like that code, LoveDoc.
Yes.
But so you can go visit Dr. Hensley at thelovedoc.com. Please check out Josee's book. Thank you so much, Josie.
Thank you for being on today, Josee.
Yes.
We really appreciate your expertise.
Yes, it's been very insightful, very insightful. So thank you. And to all of our listeners, until next time, peace, love, and perspective.